Olá a todos e sejam muito bem-vindos ao primeiro episódio da segunda temporada do podcast Facility Management Sem Mistérios. Meu nome é Thiago Santana e nós já iniciamos esse segundo ano do nosso programa, cumprindo uma promessa que nós fizemos no último episódio da semana passada, que abriu uma nova vertical de programas ao longo deste ano, chamada FM do Mundo, FM of the World, onde nós vamos trazer convidados de outros países para dividir um pouquinho as experiências, as histórias, as perspectivas e trajetórias de carreira. E aí eu tenho certeza que vocês vão observar de que muitos dos desafios e das oportunidades que aparecem em outros cantos desse planeta são os mesmos que nós encontramos aqui dentro de casa. Mas antes de anunciar o nosso convidado mais do que especial para esse nosso primeiro episódio, eu quero anunciar uma parceria bacana que o Beer or Coffee fez com o Facility Management Sem Mistérios. Você já ouviu falar no Beer or Coffee? Não, não é uma distribuidora de cerveja ou café. O principal objetivo do Beer or Coffee é oferecer soluções para empresas e profissionais que buscam viver uma forma nova de trabalho com mais liberdade, colaboração e felicidade. Mas como é que isso funciona na prática? O Beer or Coffee é um marketplace de espaços de trabalho. É uma empresa que te ajuda a oferecer coworking, sala privativa, sala de reunião ou eventos para os seus colaboradores. Todos os seus custos com aluguel, água, energia, internet, impostos estão inclusos em apenas uma assinatura. É sem burocracias e você só paga quando usar. É uma forma de disponibilizar locais com a infraestrutura adequada para o seu time e ainda ter uma estrutura de trabalho sem nenhum investimento inicial. Outra vantagem é a possibilidade de contratar pessoas em todo o país. O Beer Coffee possui espaços em mais de 170 cidades. Seus colaboradores atuais também vão adorar a flexibilidade do local de trabalho e com certeza isso vai te ajudar a evitar turnover. Se você quiser conhecer mais, é só acessar www.beerorcoffee.com, cerveja ou café em inglês, ou clicar no link que vamos deixar na descrição deste episódio. Muito bem, então para iniciar e dar as boas-vindas para este primeiro programa desta série FM of the World, eu vou fazer a mudança para o inglês, onde eu vou anunciar o nosso convidado de hoje, Duncan Waddell, que veio lá da Austrália, já esteve aqui no Brasil conosco, já tive em várias oportunidades com ele em outros lugares, outros fóruns aí por esse mundo, e nós dividimos diversos projetos em comum, e nós vamos conversar bastante sobre isso ao longo deste programa. Então, convertendo para o inglês, hello Duncan, welcome to our podcast. How are you, my friend?
Very well, thanks, Tiago. And how are you?
I'm absolutely fine, thank you, Duncan. Looking forward for our conversation. And first of all, I'm very, very pleased to have you here with us for this first podcast of our second season.
It's always a pleasure, Tiago, and I thoroughly enjoy visiting Brazil and you and your city, but I also wish you and your listeners a very happy new year, and let's all hope that from a facilities management perspective that's a lot safer and that we can continue to grow and learn in the next 12 months.
Yes, thank you, Duncan, and I think that's hope for everybody that have a better year, despite the fact that we started a little bit as if it were like 2 years ago, but I believe that this time will be slightly different. I first met Duncan in 2015 when I was on the board from the local association, Local Facility Management Association, ABRAFAC, and Duncan was the chair for Global FM. And for the ones that are not familiar with Global FM, please, Duncan, let's start from the beginning. Tell us a little bit more about Global FM and what's the purpose and what's the perspective for all the professionals around this important association of associations around the world.
Sure, Tiago. And thanks for the invitation to share some background to this thing called FM as you and I both know it. Global FM is an organisation or an association that is a not-for-profit organisation. It doesn't employ anyone, but it is like a federation of associations, FM associations from around the world. So, Tiago, you're right. When we first met, it was when you were representing ABRAFAC at the board table of Global FM. And part of the reason that ABRAFAC became members of Global FM was that there were a number of associations around the world, FM associations, that wanted to share and learn from one another. And what happened was that initially there were three major associations that got together in the British Institute of Facility Management, now known as IWFM, which is out of the UK. We had IFMA, which is headquartered in the United States. And then we had the Facility Management Association of Australia. And ABRAFAC joined that group along with Hungary, along with several other parties who wanted to learn and share with one another. And it wasn't about developing education courses. It wasn't about getting sponsorship. It was more the opportunity for the leaders in those associations, that is the volunteer leaders, as well as any paid employees who might exist within FM associations, to collaboratively come together and talk about common issues that were facing the world of facility management. It also helped us talk about things like not holding our conferences in conflict with one another, that would enable people to be able to go to different conferences around the world without them all falling in the same week. So about coordination of events and about coordination of learning and sharing together was very, very important. And I'm really pleased that I stepped down as the chair of Global FM back in January of 2021, and now hold the role of a feather duster, as we call it in Australia. So I am the immediate past chairman, and I'm there to provide support to the new chair, John Carrillo, who has an independent role in his term as the president of, or the chairman of Global FM. But what I'm also pleased about, Tiago, is that in the last 5 years, the association that is Global FM has grown significantly. We now have 14 member countries that include Panama, that include Egypt, that includes Turkey, that includes, obviously, continues to include Brazil and Australia and North America, or sorry, US and the UK. And what's exciting about it is that as these parties slowly come together, we're getting a better understanding of the challenges being faced around the world. Now, Global FM was started about 12 or 15, or probably 15 or 16 years ago. And it was started by the three countries that I originally mentioned to you. They're member associations. And the first chair of Global FM was Stan Mitchell, who I'm sure is a name that would be familiar to a number of people listening to this podcast. We then had Steve Gladwin take the role, and Steve was living in Australia at the time, but he has now moved back to the UK. Then we had Tina Schaus, who was based in the US, and then my turn came up, and I held the role for about 8 years. I'm not sure whether it's because nobody else wanted to do the job, or whether I hadn't been clever enough to find somebody to replace me. But I'm delighted to see that the board of Global FM is very strong, it's active, and plays a great role in the world of FM. I suppose two of the main things that Global FM has brought to the table in the past 10 years is the celebration of World FM Day, which is always held on the second Wednesday of every May. And the other item that we also run on a regular basis is the Awards of Excellence from a Global FM's perspective, which really is the best of the best as far as nominees are concerned. And it's a very significant undertaking that Global FM is involved in. The other item that we've also done, and we've now done it for over a period of 5 years, and that is we produce a world sizing study. When you talk to different associations and different organisations around the world, everyone seems to have a different idea on how big the marketplace is in terms of its size, its turnover, and the numbers of people that are employed in it. Global FM has taken on the daunting task of researching the size of the marketplace in facility management, and it measures that size against the GDP of countries and works out what size the marketplace is as a percentage of GDP of the country. This particular measure is a very sound one, but then we start to measure the size of the outsourced marketplace. We start to measure the size of the number of people involved in the marketplace, and how much is outsourced, as I mentioned, how much is insourced, and then again the skills that are required to do the work and where those skills are coming from. So it's quite an important study. The study will kick off again in another 4 months, 5 months time, now that we're post-COVID, to get a better sense and feel about what's happened in the past couple of years. And I anticipate that this next round of research will be released by the end of 2022 or the beginning of 2023. So, Tiago, that's just a little bit of history there. It's successful, it's collaborative, it's non-political, it's bipartisan, and it's a great group to be involved in. And it just shows that FM is truly a worldwide business activity practice across all elements of our society.
And Duncan, let me give you another option why you took for so long the chair of Global FM is because you did a very, very good job. For the ones that are not familiar, Duncan mentioned the market study. This document was released by Abrafac locally a couple of years back. And also let me remind you for the Global FM Day and the celebrations that we do together worldwide. Every year, Abrafac celebrates the Melhores do Ano Award, which is an innovation session that recognizes the projects and initiatives that the professionals and the companies around the FM business they put in their day-to-day business. And the 3 best ones from the local award, they go for the global competition. So in the Global FM Award, over the 3 best subscriptions from Brazil together jointly with the 3 better subscriptions from US, from UK, from South Africa, they run together from the top 3 best awards of the world. So stay tuned, stay focused on the webpage from Abrafac that will receive more information about it. So Duncan, give us a little bit more about your background. How did you reach the world of FM?
Thanks, Tiago. I'll try and keep this as simple as possible because I don't want to overcomplicate it. But my background is one of a business background. So I don't come from a skilled area of engineering or architecture or a trade background. I have a business degree, and so I tend to look at facility management in the context of it being a business function that needs to occur within any organisation. And as a consequence, I believe that this business focus has helped me look at facility management in a different way. I don't look at it as an engineer. I don't look at it as a tradesperson. I don't look at it as an architect. I don't look at it as a cleaner. I don't look at it as a catering company. I look at it as a business tool that can be used and how you use business tools to support all the activities of facility management. So I first got involved in facility management when I joined a major construction company here in Australia by the name of Lend-Lease, and that was back in the mid-80s, 1985. And what happened was that it became very evident to me that it's not just about the building of a building that's important, it's the way people work within the building that's important. So this particular company that I worked for was involved in building things such as apartment blocks, residential towers, office works. They also did infrastructure like schools and hospitals, universities, and they also got involved in things like tennis centres and stadium. So it's all right to build the building, and yes, you need to be a good building company, and yes, you need to have good architects and good engineers. But when you think of it, the real work starts when people start to use the facilities themselves. And that's what really started to get me intrigued in this whole thing on facility management. So when I left Lend-Lease, I left to join an organisation, my own organisation. I started a consulting company. And facility management as a term here in Australia had only just started to emerge in 1992. And what happened was that I did a worldwide study tour over a period of about 2 months, and I traveled to countries both in the north and southern hemispheres, and I wanted to find out what people were doing in this thing called facility management. And what really struck me was different parts of the world were practicing facility management in different ways. So in North America, I found that it was very much seen as a janitorial function. The property function, that is all things to do with corporate real estate, weren't involved. It was more a janitorial, looking after the buildings from a very trade-based focus. I found that in the UK, there was a major focus on it being, and it was being driven through the real estate, the corporate real estate function. And in the UK, it's called estate management, and that's where the word real estate comes from. And in the UK, it was called estate management. And now they've also shifted, as North America has, in the way in which this is practiced. So I came back to Australia, and I set up my first consulting firm, advising clients strategically on how they should think about delivering services in a different way, rather than just do and pay, standard contracting. We had started the Facility Management Association here in Australia in 1988, and I'm pleased to say that I was one of the founding members, and it's still very strong as an association with in excess of 3,000 members right now. And when you consider a population of 25 million people in Australia with 3,000 members of the association, by ratio, it's a pretty solid and strong organisation. And that started to grow as well. And through collaboration with other associations from around the world through Global FM, we were able to grow and learn from one another. And other associations around the world were growing as well. So I dare say there is not one facility management organisation in the world, that is association, that is still not changing and adapting to meet the needs of the marketplace. And that's the most important thing that associations need to remember, is that they are there to support the development of the professional facility manager. The role of the professional facility manager has changed significantly since 1988 and continues to evolve. And I'll talk more about that a bit later on, no doubt. But nonetheless, so my background, business focus, taking business tools and applying them to areas that traditionally didn't have a business focus. There are, the day-to-day things that needed to be done around a building were more or less done by default, or when somebody remembered to do them, or when something broke down. Now we're very much about whole of life. We're thinking about the future. We're thinking about effectiveness. And more importantly, we're thinking about the people who use the building and the way in which facility management can support them in what they're trying to achieve.
And I'm glad to hear that, Duncan, because we have touched this point several times in our programs, that the facility management is not just about janitorial, it's not just about the maintenance. It doesn't matter if it's on a healthcare unit, on a store, or in a factory. It's about to look for the strategy, support the business strategy to reach their goals, their outcomes, their objectives. And also curious that you have realized the importance of the FM role in the workplace, in the customer and employee satisfaction way before the market start to discuss that. Also, Duncan, you mentioned very well that our profession have faced important changes and important new challenges over the last years, and we are facing new challenges right now. If you look for the period of time over the last 5 to 6 years, specifically when we've met for the first time up to today, looking for the introduction of information and technology on a level that we haven't dreamed before in the devices, in the IoT machines. What, in your opinion, that's the question that I'd like to open our second part of our discussion. What, in your opinion, are the major transformation, the major new challenges that are pushing the organizations and the professionals to change the way that they see our business, not just for the transactional perspective, but for a more holistic perspective, look from the planet, for the business, for the agenda of several other stakeholders. So how do you see, based on the transformations that I have faced over the last 5 years, how do you see those changes transforming the role of the organizations and the professionals around the FM business?
Yeah, that's a tough question to answer in a simple way, Tiago. And I'll give you a couple of different responses so that people can think about different aspects of your question. So what changes have I seen and let's talk about the last 5 years. So in talking about the last 5 years, certainly the last 2 years has been had a major impact on facility management. The management of the implementation of pandemic response has been very, very important, and facility management has played a significant role in what needs to occur because people have occupied buildings either for work or where they live or travelling and mixing with society in general. And the facility manager has played an enormous role in the security from protection of the transmission of COVID and cleanliness of workplaces and workspaces and other public and infrastructure. So the pandemic has had a major impact. The other item that's had a major impact is the release in 2018 of ISO 41001. And the benefit of the delivery of that standard that has been translated, as I understand it, in Brazil for local language as well, which is great to see, is that all of a sudden we have the ability to start practicing facility management in a common way around the world. In other words, we are professionalizing the activities of facility management so that it can be recognized at the board table as a significant contributor to business and organizations' operations, whether it's a hospital, whether it's an office tower, or a corporate who owns manufacturing plants. It doesn't matter. All of them have got facility management needs. And what ISO 41001 does is it clearly articulates the management system approach that should be taken to have success as facility management practitioners. So that's another major shift, that the professionalization of the field of FM is becoming more and more robust. The impact of COVID has had a major impact. The sophistication of systems and technology has enabled many things to occur with a simple approach. Now, one of the things that the facility management industry and profession has suffered from for a long time is that corporate entities would not spend the money on systems and technology to support this very important area of technology and the benefits that it can deliver. And it's always been money, when it's spent and allocated within an organisation, tends to be focused around information technology to support the core business, but not necessarily to support the business as a whole in delivering what it's doing. And when you consider that next to human resources, the next largest expenditure that most organisations have is on their facilities management, whether it's the cleaning, whether it's looking after the plant and equipment, whether it's paying the rent or looking after the building that the organisation might own. All of these areas are facility management responsibilities. So generally speaking, it is the second or third largest area of spend. Now, any organisation that doesn't invest the time and the money and the knowledge into systems to support the third largest or second largest area of expenditure is crazy, and they won't last very long in the marketplace. So constant attention to the internet of things, and the way in which connectivity is enabling through artificial intelligence for equipment and plant to be better predicting its life, to better inform about performance, is really, really important. So systems and technology have made major changes. We've had the impact of COVID, which has had major changes to the way in which we ventilate our spaces that we occupy, and also to help educate people about infection control and transmission of risk and disease. And then finally, the other area that, as I said, is the professionalisation of facility management, which is really important. And Tiago, I raised that point because, as you know, I've had the honour of being appointed 12 months ago as the chairman of ISO Technical Committee 267 Facility Management, and I took over the chairman's role from Stan Mitchell, and continue to lead a fantastic group of people around the world, of which we have a number of representatives from Brazil sitting on the TC 267 group, and it's great to see the effort of the world coming together to start talking about what facility management can do and how we can better manage the transparent approach that we all take, so that if anyone wants to go and approach facility management in Brazil or in Poland or in Egypt or in Norway, it's all being practiced in a very similar way as set out within the management system standard in 41001, along with a number of other standards that the TC is also working on at this point in time. So, Tiago, probably they're my three key learnings from the last 5 years that I would talk to. I hope you think that I've done them justice. If anything else comes to mind, I certainly will raise that. And there are things that I think that we are moving towards in the future, but I just wanted to cap off on those things that most recently have come up.
It was brilliant, Duncan, and just confirmed what I have said, what we have discussed here a lot of times in other programs, that in terms of development of market, what we have faced in Brazil over the last decade, it's exactly the same that our colleagues are facing in other countries of the world. The level of challenge, the level of maturity of our processes around the FM business. And also, you addressed very well a movement that we have also seen locally, that is the investments in systems and informations around FM activities. Not just to have the MMS systems in place, but also how talk about predictability, how discuss about reduction of costs. We together represent the second or third largest line of costs for our organization. So the ones that have realized the importance of have systems and intelligence around the business, they are saving money and delivering better services to their customers. Duncan, that's it for the program today, but stay here because we'll keep this conversation for the second part of our interview. Para vocês que estão ouvindo, não esqueça de curtir e compartilhar o conteúdo desse podcast. E fique atento que semana que vem tem a segunda parte com a entrevista com Duncan Waddell aqui no Facility Management Sem Mistérios. Um grande abraço e até semana que vem.